for all the teams. So I am very, very pleased to introduce this morning Senator Joe Nguyen, who is from the 34th District, who is an awesome champion of the environment and other issues. He is the chair of the Senate Environment and Technology Committee. And let me share my screen so I can go ahead and get your presentation going. Okay.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you so much for coming, Senator.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Sorry, I'm in a hotel lobby, so the light is not very flattering. It's kind of a harsh light, but we'll go ahead and just jump right in. So I'm Senator Joe Nguyen from the 34th Legislative District. So if anybody's in the West Seattle, White Center, Burien, Vashon Island, Soto, Georgetown, Highland Park area, I get to serve those communities. And we'll go ahead and jump to the next slide. And then real quick, in terms of my background, so this is me and my mom. So I ran for office 5 years ago to represent this area, and I happen to be the first Vietnamese senator in the history of Washington State and the first legislator of color from the 34th Legislative District, and largely around issues on social justice, economic justice, and environmental justice. So kind of dovetails nicely into some of the work that I get to do now. So go to the next slide. And then for context, there's a few of us that get to represent the 34th. So just to give you an idea, there's about 160,000 people that live in the 34th Legislative District, and I get to be the legislator from there. And these are my colleagues on the left from where I'm sitting. It is Representative Joe Fitzgibbon. In the middle is Emily Alvarado and myself. So what's interesting is that I am the current chair of the Environment, Energy, Technology Committee in the Senate. Joe Fitzgibbon, as of last year, was the chair, up until last year, was the chair of the Environment Committee on that side as well in the House. So it is well represented in our area. We'll go to the next slide. And then kind of jumping right into the circular economy, it is a very interesting time for us right now. This is a picture of me and a group of folks led by Heather and some other folks that went to Denmark back in September 2019, which seems like ages ago. This was right before the pandemic. I think about 3 or 4 months later, the pandemic officially happened, but we were kicking off kind of the idea of what a circular economy could look like in Washington State. How do those policies transfer? And one of the best places for us to visit was Denmark. They've been doing some amazing work around sustainability and symbiosis for a long time. They had an interesting model where back during the oil embargo, they actually kept the gas prices high on purpose. And as it went down, they used that as a carbon tax to fund a number of very innovative projects. And kind of one of the main ones that we want to look at is on the next slide, is an area called Kalundborg. So sustainability in this sense can be as big as a design-centered industrial area where you co-locate a number of businesses where the waste energy for one area then is utilized for the production and manufacturing for another one as well. So this is just kind of one of those things that we went to go visit in Denmark in order for us to understand, the implications of how we can actually decarbonize, have a more sustainable infrastructure, and how do we promote industrial symbiosis. But not all of it has to be this robust. So we'll go to the next slide real quick. We also visited on this map. So this is a map of Denmark, and that tiny red island in the middle is called Samso Island. If folks are in the area, it's roughly the size of Vashon Island. If you're from here, it's an hour or so ferry ride from Copenhagen. And what they've done is they've kind of created this community around sustainability where they lead a ton of work on not just sustainability, but also on renewable energy as well. So go to the next slide. And the point that I want to make here, and this is a photo of us at the Energy Institute that's on the island that's famous. There's actually a Netflix show for Samsu if you want to look at what kind of they do there. But really, how do you take this very tiny island with very limited capacity and resources, and you transform it into something that is so innovative, where they're able to generate their own energy, and they're able to use the resources that they have in order to be self-sustaining as well. Go to the next slide. So we talked briefly about how it was as transformative as co-locating an entire area. It could also be as simple as taking biostock from the local agricultural communities and using that to make sustainable aviation fuels as well. So it's fascinating time to be in this space in Washington State, because like I said, we were there back in 2019. Go to the next slide. And then last week, I actually met with the minister from Denmark. I'm sorry, the ambassador from Denmark. She was in Washington State to talk through how we can actually bolster the relationship that we have with Denmark. And since that time in 2019, we passed a number of bills regarding the circular economy in Washington State. So the main one being industrial symbiosis, being able to encourage Washington State and our economy to build in a more thoughtful way. The establishing the Ecology's Commerce Recycling Development Center, more recycling around beverage containers and household goods, wind turbine studies, battery recycling, and probably the biggest one on this list is actually the Climate Commitment Act. So folks probably on this call know about the IRA at the federal level, the Inflation Reduction Act. 4 of the 5 principles of the IRA is based off of work done in Washington State, largely related to the Climate Commitment Act. But one of the biggest things about the Climate Commitment Act is that we actually have resources and funding that is paid for by credits from polluters to drive us towards a cleaner economy as well. So I spent this last cycle writing the budget, including that portion, which is about $2 billion. So what that kind of means is, we'll go to the next slide real quick. So what that means is that for us in 2024, not only is this concept and idea now kind of baked into the work that we're doing in Washington State, there's actually resources and funding to help make it happen as well. So I've been spending a ton of time working with developers, working with sustainability consultants, working with companies that are working in this space. So we are at a point where we are able to not just talk about these policies, we're implementing them right now, but also a huge component is ensuring that there's a private-public partnership for us to get this work done. And there's a number of resources to make it happen as well. So there's a ton of stuff that's gonna happen, but I'll kind of leave it at that in case there's any questions. We'll go to the next slide. And again, I'm Senator Joe Nguyen, 34th District, and really a privilege to be here to see so many folks who care about this space, because I think this is such an amazing opportunity for us to not just do the right thing, but also it's kind of timely for us as well, as just given all that's happening worldwide.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Nguyen. That was awesome. And you are a really great leader on these topics. We now have time for 5 minutes for questions from the audience. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and I'll go ahead and start us off with one question, which is, so in your opinion, how well versed do you think the rest of your senators, and I guess the House reps, are, other than the people who are like in the Environment Committee, the rest of the legislature, how well versed are they in the concept of circular economy?
Yeah, so there's probably a third of us, to be honest. I think that trip that I went on to Denmark was put together by a nonprofit called I Sustained. It's a Danish furniture company. They want to leave a legacy of a more sustainable future. So they put together this program. Heather and I went together, and a number of us went. And what's funny is that this is a very bipartisan ideal. Half of the bills that I referred to previously were actually Republican bills, right? So this is one of those interesting intersections where you have, progressive environmentalists like me, and then also kind of more business-minded Republicans who come together to kind of get this stuff done. So I would say a lot of folks are actually engaged in this right now. So it's kind of a good opportunity.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay, Lisa, I see you have a question. Lisa Smith. And can you introduce yourself when you say your name, please?
Yes, good morning. Lisa Smith here. I'm the Executive Director of the Washington State Microenterprise Association and a glad sponsor of this event. I would love to know, Senator, first of all, excellent presentation this morning. I would love to know what key strategies we in the nonprofit business technical assistance environment can do to accelerate either better or more in-depth legislation, or just catapult this state into the next viable strategy moving forward.
Yeah, I think one of the most difficult components that we had last year was trying to ensure that the folks most burdened by pollution were also part of the solution. So that is very grassroots, that is very hands-on, that is very one-to-one. And I think being able to make those connections and ensuring that folks have that opportunity is key. There's a number, obviously, of microenterprises kind of in this space. I don't know if Gridwell counts as microenterprise, but they do some innovative stuff as well. No, they're not. But there's a number of ways for us to partner kind of in that space, right? So, the high level that I would say is trying to help folks connect with the grants and the resources that are available with commerce is probably the biggest one. What's funny, I had a conversation with some nonprofits in the food services space. I do a lot of food justice work. And I just explained to them how the budget process worked and the fact that the budget is live right now, but then the grants don't come out until July just because that's when the fiscal year starts. So if you want to get a head start, look at the budget and see if there's anything that makes sense for you. And you could actually start applying in advance before it even comes out, right? So marrying the resources with the communities, I think, is important. But also these events, trying to surface those ideas is fantastic, and kind of making that connection as well. And I'd be happy to help if needed.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. And now we have a question from Erin Adams.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for your presentation. I am Erin Adams. I'm the Executive Director of Seattle Good Business Network. And my question piggybacks a little bit on Lisa's. We are in the business of values-based economic development, and we support micro enterprises all the way through small to medium-sized businesses. Many of them are manufacturing physical products and are wanting to operate with circularity. And so I guess my question is, do you know, in the funding that's coming through the IRA, and I guess to your point, we should be looking at the budget process, but any idea if there's an opportunity to be supporting these size businesses as a sector, like is with intentionality to support smaller businesses to be able to be part of the circular economy versus having those businesses applying for individual grants that come out? In other words, a strategy that supports that whole layer of the economy. Does that make sense? I don't know if that came through.
Yeah. So in the IRA, largely it's tax breaks, right? And then some resources associated with efforts. I don't think that there's anything specific, maybe I could be wrong, with a circular economy resources, but I could be wrong in that case. However, I am the budget writer for the CCA, and this would fall under some of the work that we do in that space. I did actually just see the latest estimates for the next forecast, so I think we'll be fine on the budget side. I'd be happy to help partner to figure out what that could look like as well. To give you additional context, my side job, so I work largely in tech. My last client was actually Goodwill. So I built them an e-commerce platform called goodwillfinds.com. So they're one of the largest circular economy / sustainability kind of players in the game as well. So there's a number of spaces that we can play in to kind of help ensure that these things happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.